Welcome to Alive to Thrive OT. I'm Tracy Schnabel.
And I'm Lauren Lyman.
And we are two occupational therapists that notice a gap in the healthcare system, primarily with nutrition and mental health. We do all the research for you, and our YouTube is free, so check out all our videos. However, we have a small disclaimer. It's for informational purposes only. If you have a specific medical concern, please consult with your medical provider. We do not give warranties or representations for the information on our website or on this YouTube video. If you have an emergent medical concern, emergencies, please call 911. And without further ado, we are going to be talking about crippling fear.
So every emotion is important. I never say there are good or bad emotions. Every emotion can be a good, purposeful thing if you allow it to be. If you know how to interpret your emotions, if you know how to act based on, okay, this is the emotion I'm having, this is how I can make it productive, that's good. And that means all emotions are good and useful. However, we get caught in this cycle of crippling fear. And I want to talk a little bit about how fear is crippling, like what's actually going on in the body that's making you crippled, how people can use your fear to manipulate you into thinking and doing certain things. And I want to talk about 4 ways that you can avoid this manipulation, because who wants to be manipulated, right? We want to think for ourselves. We want to do for ourselves. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're going along with things that we shouldn't be or that don't make sense just because we're afraid and they're playing on that fear. So on a subconscious level, this is happening. So even if you're like, oh, this isn't me, just pay attention, because these are changes that we can all make in our lives, and it may really impact you and you didn't even realize it. Okay, because that was me a couple years ago. So why is fear crippling? Well, there's something we talk about in a lot of our videos. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response. So evolutionarily speaking, all those years ago when we were outside living off the land, and we had predators and we had to worry about our food and getting eaten and all that stuff, how we dealt with stress or how we dealt with fear was we either fought against whatever was coming at us, we flew, we got the heck out of there, we ran away, or we froze, which, if you've ever seen a possum play dead, that's like the freeze response, or deer in the headlights, that's freezing because you're like, oh shoot, I don't know what to do. So those are our natural innate mechanisms to respond to fear. So unfortunately, fear used to be like a very real, concrete thing, like, hey, this bear is about to attack me, I'm scared. That's legit, right? But now that we've evolved and we're complex human beings and yada yada, we have never evolved to deal with fear in a better way. So our bodies still do that fight, flight, or freeze. And what that does to our brain is it literally impairs our judgment, because our brains are so focused on like one thing, like, okay, let's go back to the bear. Our brain is focused on, well, we got to get a lot of adrenaline going in our body. Our cortisol levels rise because we're super stressed out right now. And then it shuts off other parts of the brain that aren't needed. So running from a bear, that's like running is a pretty innate thing. We all know how to run, right? So we don't need the logical part of our brain in that scenario. So it shuts off that logical part of the brain, that part of the brain that can say like, wait a minute, is this fear legit? Does this really make sense or not? So I know when you really step back and think about it, like if you're watching a scary movie, you're like, okay, this isn't real, and you're trying to talk yourself out of the fear, but you're still feeling all those emotions, and it's illogical, that this is just a TV show or just a movie, and that there's no ghost in the room or no one coming at you, but you still have that sense of fear, and I laugh at myself, because I know it's illogical and it makes no sense, but I can't shut that off in my body, and it's still affecting me, and it's making me think illogically. Like for the next week, I'll be like, not wanting to sleep with the lights off, or like checking, to see if there's ghosts and stuff. That doesn't make sense.
Noise, you jump.
Right. Like, it doesn't make sense at all. But that's like a perfect example of, hey, like, my body is doing this on a subconscious level and I really don't have a lot of control over it. So use that example, because that's what happens with manipulation. That's how people use your fear to manipulate you. So that logical center in the brain is not really needed, evolutionarily speaking, when you're running from that bear. So still, in today's situations, that logical center of the brain shuts off. Your adrenaline and your cortisol flood your body. You get your uncomfortable symptoms, like cold sweat or nervous or jumpy or whatever. But because today we're talking about fear in terms of like long-term things and emotional stressors, chronic stressors, well, that fight, flight, or freeze, you get kind of stuck in that. And you become so desperate to get rid of those uncomfortable symptoms that you will do whatever you're told, because you're like, I just want to feel better. So if you don't understand physiologically what's going on in your body, you're just going to listen to whoever's going to get rid of that fear for you, rather than kind of making up your own mind and working around this mechanism of the body that's unfortunately kind of inhibiting us in modern life. So you have this diminished logic. You have this desperation to get rid of your fear and to feel better. And those two things add up to compliance. So you are going to hand over your rights, hand over your control over the situation, and you're going to comply with whoever is going to get rid of that fear for you, because we don't want to feel bad. It's an icky feeling, and we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be fearful. So make me feel better, right? That's our go-to, our instinct. Make me feel better. So all very natural things happening. It's basically our evolutionary body fighting against modern times, and they just don't jive. They just don't. So we need to learn skills that are not innate to us. We need to learn how to avoid this manipulation, and it doesn't come naturally. It's something you need to learn, and it's something you need to practice, and it's not going to be easy initially, but practice makes perfect, and over time it'll get easier, and you'll get control of your life back, and fear will not be so crippling for you.
A lot of times manipulators will say, I'll keep you safe. I'll keep you safe, which is code for I will control you.
Yeah. So what can we do to avoid this manipulation? 1, acknowledge your emotions and determine the cause of your emotions. If you don't know what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and if you don't learn how to process through those feelings and manage them, none of this is going to work. So check out our video on social emotional learning. Yes, it talks about kids, but if you didn't learn it as a kid, then hey, you need to learn it now. So check out our video. It'll kind of take you through how to identify your emotions, cope with them, regulate them, act appropriately, all of that stuff. So I'm just going to send you there because I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. Number 2 is learn the actions that you can take to address the situation. Internal locus of control. I have control over this situation. What can I do to take control of my fear, to handle this situation, and be confident in the decisions that I'm making? So rather than relying on other people to fix it for you, what can you do? Do the research. The internet's out there. There's so much information. And yes, some of it's hidden, but it's getting a little better. I use DuckDuckGo.com. There are a couple other search engines that are not so biased and money-based, that they don't have blacklists and companies that aren't allowed to show up in searches like some of the common search engines that we use. So check out the other search engines so you know that you're getting the full information. Teach yourself, read books, have confidence in yourself, investigate motives. So a lot of companies, they want to make money, right? So their motive is money, and money is not necessarily going to lead you down the path of truth, honesty, or compassion, ethics. There's a lot of ethical concerns when money is involved. So, whoever's trying to manipulate you or trying to make you feel fearful, Ask yourself, why would me being fearful benefit them? Why would my compliance benefit them? And if you can't come up with anything, then maybe they're not manipulating you. Or maybe, again, you need to do a little digging, do some research and dig a little deeper, have some discussions with people. But definitely investigate motives, because everyone's intentions, unfortunately, in this world are not always good. And money is a strong influencer of intentions. And if something's not going to directly impact the person up here, and, you know, if them making you feel fearful is going to affect all of these people down here, if it's going to affect all these people down here, but it's not going to affect them, then there's a sense of detachment sometimes. And, you know, well, I don't really know you, so I feel more comfortable manipulating you, you know, on a grand scale, like if we're talking about people making political decisions and things like that. So just do your research, investigate. And number 4, which is really important, is trusting your instincts. We are all born with instincts, but throughout our lives, we're programmed to turn them off, ignore them. Your education is now your instinct. What you're learning in school, that takes over your instincts. Knowledge is more important than your instincts. But those instincts, I mean, if we're going back to evolution, they're there for a reason. Mm-hmm. You know, if you get that nasty vibe from someone, there's probably a reason. And scientifically speaking, people emit energy from their bodies in like a 6-foot radius. So people are emitting this bad energy, and we literally can feel it. We can pick up on it. It's a scientific thing. So when you get a bad vibe from someone, if you get this feeling in your gut, like this doesn't feel right, your gut is your second brain. And your gut, that feeling, those instincts are oftentimes more accurate than the knowledge that you have, because we use knowledge and facts and books and lessons taught in school to like wish away our instincts, which I think is really unfortunate, because I think our instincts are number 1, and then our knowledge and science and all that supports that. But if we keep trying to convince ourselves that this isn't important or this isn't right, then we end up just conforming to whatever the powers that be want us to conform to. So we could be talking about fear in terms of you and your spouse trying to make a decision about something. We could be talking about society at large, cultural norms causing fear. We could be talking about politics. It doesn't matter, because it is all the same. It is our evolutionary instinct, our evolutionary mechanism to detach from that logical part of our brain, and unfortunately that's going to affect our decisions. So we need to be aware that this is happening. We need to be able to process the emotion of fear, deal with it, put it aside, so that we can turn that logical center of our brain back on, make good decisions for ourselves.
And I had someone tell me one time that she's like a statistician, and she said that it makes sense to her to use your intuition. She met her husband, and she knew that he was the right one, like right away. And she was saying also, like, with how she chose her career, and how people like choose a lot of times their partners or their careers as by trusting their gut instinct, by knowing yourself and going with that, because you can't evaluate everything in life based off of logic. So she's like, it's actually more logical with certain things to go with your gut feeling, because that's in essence who you are, and then you're following yourself.
Well, you can convince yourself of anything.
Yeah.
You can convince yourself, this is going to make me happy, this person's going to make me happy. Well, if we have X, Y, and Z, we'll be happy. But your instincts, you can't fight your instincts. They're there. You can turn them off. You can look around them. You can talk yourself into believing whatever you want, but your instincts know best. So make sure you find a way to turn that system back on, acknowledge it, stop ignoring it, and you'll be a lot better off in terms of your emotional health, your physical health, and in terms of being your own person and not complying to, going with the herd and complying with what everybody else says.
And maybe that's also why the heart has such a larger electrical magnetic field than the brain, because the heart
much bigger,
is stronger and knows more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
Just just thoughts we have here.
So just wanted to address the fear thing. There's a lot of fear mongering that goes on. I hate it. I used to buy into it, not anymore, and I'm so much happier now and healthier and better off for it. So hope we can help you with this video. Please like the video, share it with other people, subscribe to our channel, sign up for alerts so you know when new videos are coming, and visit us at www.facebook.com/Lauren and Tracy. And if you have any questions, podcast ideas, you want to look into life coaching, holistic health and wellness, if you want a little bit of Reiki, Tracy does that, just send us an email at alive2thriveot@gmail.com.
And as usual, we're wishing you physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. We're so happy that you're here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.